Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Nepal, up high in the Himalayas, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Can you guys hear me all? I'm 9,000 miles away and about a couple miles up in the sky. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Good to have you back, my man.
Happy Ram's appearance.
Yeah. It's a holiday today, right?
You know what? We had, if you don't mind me sharing, we had such an auspicious, maybe one of the best days of my life.
Okay.
We had this mission, we're driving up. What my guide said would be a very easy ride. It was like the worst ride of my life. It was like, I wouldn't recommend this to a herd of goats. It was like a windy road, completely unpaved for 10 hours.
Okay.
Landslides on one side and cliffs on the other.
Was it like buses kind of lying down at the bottom of the valley kind of thing? That kind of terrifying?
I didn't see any buses, but I will say it's the biggest gorge in the world.
Okay.
Created by the Annapurna and Dhaulagiri, these, some of the biggest mountains in the world. I think it's like number 7 and number 4 or something like that. And the Kali Gandaki runs through it, and that's where you get the Shalagram Shilas. So we were on a mission to go to this very, very northern holy places called Muktinath. And so we finally made it, and this morning we were excited because it gets warm around 11 o'clock. It gets warm around 11 o'clock, and the river is freezing cold. So we go to Muktinath, and before you see the Lord, you take bath in these 2 little lakes.
Where do you see the Lord?
And
did he just appear to you, or how did you see the Lord?
These little man-made ponds. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I was asking. You said before you see the Lord. What do you mean by that? Does he just walk up to you?
I'm sorry. There's a beautiful life-size golden deity.
There's a temple
of Lord Muktinath. So it's a deity like an altar.
Of Lord Vishnu?
So you have to bathe, and it's freezing. Yeah, Lord Vishnu.
Okay.
The giver. Grantor of Mukti. But the Buddhists have also
any idea what?
Holy as well.
Raghu?
And, we get literally ready to faint. You march up.
Okay, we're having a little trouble here. Mary, you
About a half a mile up to see Lord Muktinath, and you strip down. We're in a full-on. Can you hear me?
We can't. It's going in and out.
You're kidding. It's such a story. Caught in a gigantic snowstorm. Did you hear that?
I heard snowstorm and I heard gigantic. Let's try one more time. See if it works. You know what this is called? This is just like the Lord is creating.
I was in the gigantic, and we have to bathe in the.
I think we got to cut it off, Mara.
Okay.
And why don't you let him know? Sometimes, there are many pastimes where the Lord, he appears before someone and then he disappears just to increase the divine feelings of separation. And I think that's what's happening with us right now. As much as we want to hear from Raghunath, he's in and out. So we may have to.
Kaustubha, can you hear me now?
Oh, that sounds much better.
Oh,
Because it was really bad before. It was really bad. So maybe this will work.
Okay. So anyway,
You're coming through Zoom now. Is that right?
now I'm going through Zoom.
Okay. Get a little closer to the mic if possible, some way, because is your mic around? You could plug it in.
Not my regular mic, but my earbud is.
Okay. Well, you sound okay, actually.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. Let's try this. It might work.
That sounds even better.
So I wake up and, we have to bathe in the, it's a little cold to bathe in the morning. We're on the top of a mountain.
Mhm.
And as we open the door, we're in the middle of a blizzard. There's a blizzard on top of the Himalayan mountain peaks.
Okay.
And we're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And part of our mission is to have darshan and to bathe up there. And part of our mission is to then go to the lower town where these two sacred rivers meet, the Kali and the Gandaki. And that's where these famous stones are. And just to give you a little background of, if you're new to this bhakti thing, there's an altar and there's a deity of Krishna or Ram. And what the priest does is they carve the deity to a particular shape and form like Ram. And they do a special ceremony. We call God to enter the deity, prana partishta. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, great. So these ancient stones are said to be worshipped as if they're Lord Vishnu. You don't need not do any ritual, incredibly sacred, and you can only get them in this one place, which is this particular part of the river. And it's way high up in the Himalayas. So we are excited to go there and get them. So as we open the door, we're in the middle of like an upstate New York snowstorm and we have to bathe. So we're literally wearing like all our winter outfits and we're hiking up about a half mile. And then we have to strip everything down to our underwear. And me and Janeshwar and King of Hearts and Rocco, we are just bathing in these two ponds of it's freezing cold and it's blizzard. It's unbelievable. And it's packed with Hindus, other Indians, other Vaishnavas, because they're all worshiping Ram today. It's a huge holiday here.
Right.
So many people are on the road. And after you get in those two little lakes, then you go under these beautiful golden 108 like cow fountains where water from the Gandaki comes out of the mouth of the cow. And you have to run underneath each one of them. And then you're fully bathed. And then you can go in and then you can have darshan or you can go in front of the altar of Muktinath. It was a magical morning, man. It was one of the best mornings of my life to do that in the snow. And then we quickly went in and then we just went to the banks of these rivers where the rivers met. And we just looked all over for shalagrams. And it was like an unbelievable experience.
Well, something.
That was my morning.
For most people, that would be like, let me get this straight. It was freezing cold. You hiked out in the freezing cold. Then you bathed under some cow fountain. And then you look for rocks. It sounds absolutely miserable. But
it was one of the best days of my life. I kid you not.
But from the transcendental perspective, it's a whole
and there was
thing.
altitude sickness.
And what?
I mean, we just hiked through the Himalayas, but we're at a lesser altitude. So it's not like we're all in good shape, but just to literally go up a flight of stairs to our hotel was so much work.
Okay. But you're coming home with the
shalagram.
You're coming home with the shalagram shilas.
I got one for you, my friend.
All right, we'll
That
see.
one for you.
We will see how
And
how my wife
yeah,
feels
I'm
about
excited.
that. Okay, awesome, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, as
They
Jamuna.
say it's one of the highest gifts you can give to somebody.
Wow. Well, as Jamuna Jaya says, it makes no
If you
material sense.
accept it, if it made it, what we did last night made no material sense whatsoever, and it was awesome.
Okay.
And they say, if you accept this from me, I get so much benefit. So I'm definitely bringing you one.
Okay.
And if you don't, I'll worship it.
Okay.
So happy Ram's appearance.
Yeah. You know, hey, I just before we get,
I would about Ram.
I would like for you to talk about Ram, but before you do that, maybe I could just share a little bit of what's happened in New York. I just wanted to, just something in my heart. I just had to share. Was yesterday.
Sure.
I had a wonderful day yesterday too. You know, like there's so many different ways to have a wonderful day. You know, so many for Rogan and myself. So many times we say, "Hey, what did you do?" And you know, like it's true. Like what you did, it on the material level, it does make no sense. But on the spiritual level, you had such a wonderful day, and I had a different kind of wonderful day. You know, it's I did the show in the morning, you know, with Balaram yesterday, and then I did this podcast for the Bodhika podcast, the Honest Man's podcast, Arise, which I enjoyed spending time with those guys.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, I, you know, and in between, you know, I went out and I chanted my japa in Central Park, which is just like absolutely like blowing up, you know, in complete, you know, pastoral beauty. You know, it's absolutely gorgeous out there. Everybody's happy, you know. And then in the afternoon, I rode my bike down to Washington Square Park to take part in the Harinam. And it's you know what day it was yesterday? Like this what you're celebrating up there? You're celebrating Ram Navami. They're celebrating 420 in Washington Square Park. So it was like, you know, everybody's getting high. And not only that, it was the first time that marijuana has been legal in New York. You know, it's legalized like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, 420 is the get high day.
That's right. Yeah.
I never smoked pot, so
You're not familiar with all
the code words for it.
Yeah, right. And so Washington Square Park was like a huge cloud of marijuana smoke. I've never seen anything like it. But everyone was really happy, so it was great for the Harinam. And then you know who wandered in there? You know, it was because it was
Bob Marley.
even better. It was Ananta Govinda, you know, who was, you know, dear friend and in my opinion, like my favorite kirtan leader in the world, you know, and
yeah,
world's
maybe one of
greatest
the best in
mridanga
the
player.
world.
Yeah, and so, but just such a close dear friend, and he just wandered in there and sat down and we did kirtan together, and then he and I just hung out for like an hour and a half and talked, you know, inspiring each other, you know, like, you know, it was super enthusiastic conversation, you know, and then I got on the bike and I rode home, you know, but you know, it is, you know, it somehow Bhakti does make life so meaningful and fun and adventurous, you know, one way or another, like every day, you know, it can, right?
It's sweet. It's very sweet. You know where else? You know where we're close to? This will blow your mind. Guess what? We're past it.
What you're close to?
It's where Gajendra was liberated.
Get out of here. Well, do you want to tell that story then?
Yeah, it's right around the corner. Yeah, there's a story about Gajendra. Like if you live around here, you know about there's tigers. There's literally Bengal tigers right outside the door. Tiger,
right outside the door right now?
Well, not right now, but they're around. Okay. They've increased 100% in 3 years.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
You know, this is where elephants live. Now, if you're familiar with elephants, these guys can lose their mind. If elephants get angry, they just start wrecking things, and they travel in packs. And there's usually one alpha male. And if you could imagine an animal that everything's afraid of, all the animals, all the humans are afraid of them, and they're in a pack. And that alpha male, if you could imagine yourself to be that alpha male elephant, you get a little ego with that, isn't it? You get a little proud, a little strong. You got a bunch of other girlfriend elephants looking up to you. Even the guys are sort of like, hey, boss, where are we going now, boss?
and you're just strutting. And try to imagine yourself in that ego of an elephant. That's Gajendra, with his posse, with his girlfriends, and the beautiful surroundings. So in one sense, we are Gajendra. Like, we're all got a little bit of an ego that we strut around with. We think we're important. We surround ourselves with people that look up to us or that think we're cool. And so Gajendra, not only being a being, we can see ourselves in his life, in that elephant. And what does he do? He sees a very, very beautiful place, a beautiful placid lake, and he steps into it. And everybody, all the other elephants are like, "You first, Gajendra, you're the best, you're the coolest." And so he very proudly steps in. He drinks some water. And as he's drinking a water, a crocodile clamps on his leg. And it's like, and you know, you ever get like, ever go to the beach or something and you're like swimming around, you get hit by a wave and you're sort of like, you know, it's awkward, but you don't lose your cool. And then all of a sudden you get like dragged into the riptide. And next thing you know, you're losing your cool. And then you get to this point where you got to reach out for help. So this is where Gajendra the elephant was. He was like getting clamped and he tried to play it cool in front of all his friends. But as he struggled, he was no longer on land. And he started giving up more and more of his arm because the crocodile just keeps clamping and clamping and clamping and dragging them into the pond. And Gajendra finally lost his cool, and in desperation, with his trunk, he plucked a lotus from the pond that was growing, and he offered it to Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu saved him. It was one of those beautiful, desperate moments when our ego gets smashed, which for a materialist is the worst thing that can happen. No one wants to get their ego smashed. No one wants to look like a fool. No one wants to call out for help. No one wants to admit they're weak. No one wants to, like, in front of all their friends, get publicly humiliated. But when we practice bhakti, we understand, like, that's part of our dismantling of the cage. That's not us. And so Gajendra set that beautiful example. So we're right by the national forest. Wow. And it borders with India. We're close to India, and we're right next to Tibet as well.
Amazing. Well, you know, there's another important part of that. There's another important part of that story.
Do tell.
Well, what happened was, as you mentioned, you know, he's there and he's enjoying, and everything seems just right materially, right? He's got his, like you say, he's got his wives or his girlfriend, elephants there, and his children, I believe, too. You know, so he's got the whole beautiful, surrounded by beautiful family and in the most beautiful setting, and enjoying, happy. You know, everyone gets happy when they jump in the water and they're having fun, and then that crocodile bites him, and they fought for a very long time, actually, and it was a brutal battle, because generally the elephant is more powerful, but because, and this is, Srila Prabhupada writes on this, he makes a really interesting point. He says, generally the elephant would be more powerful, but because the elephant was situated out of its natural element or its natural environment on land, and because the crocodile was in its natural element in the water, the elephant was losing strength and the crocodile was gaining strength, right? And he says, so in our spiritual life, we have to be situated in our right, you know, for our spiritual practice to have strength. He was speaking specifically about, like, some people need to be married to practice, you know, for some people to be unmarried, like there are monks out there and so on, right? But like, say you're trying to be a monk, but it's not really your element, then you're going to lose strength, you know, and you need to be situated in the right element. He writes a very interesting commentary on that. But then beyond that, when Gajendra was losing strength, and at a certain point he realized, I'm not going to make it, right? I'm just not going to. I'm losing strength. He's gaining strength. I'm not going to make it. In that moment, from his memory from his previous life came back to him of the prayers that he used to chant. He was a king in his previous life named King Indradyumna, and the prayers that he used to chant to Lord Vishnu, they flooded back into his memory in that moment, and he began to chant those prayers, very beautiful prayers in Bhagavatam, you know, Gajendra's prayers to Lord Vishnu. And then Lord Vishnu,
I wonder if he chanted them in elephant.
Yeah, somehow or other he did, and Lord Vishnu understood it, right? But I think And I think for Wisdom of the Sages listeners, this is real important, right? Like this is something we talk about too, that you got to commit some of these mantras and prayers to memory, even if it's just one, right? Like even if it's just like something that you can treasure, something that you keep in your heart, something that you maybe chant every day or regularly, and that becomes so
Yeah.
valuable. It in one sense it becomes more valuable than anything that we have, right? That at any moment we carry around this this poetry and this wisdom that we can bathe our mind in at any moment, whether it be a moment of um, fear and desperation, like Gajendra's, or whether it be a
Mm.
moment that we want to make more sacred, or if it's a moment where our mind is disturbed and we want to purify it and bring it back. Committing some of these mantras to memory is it's life changing. It's a super important. You know, in the modern Western yoga world, this may not be emphasized so much, but in the traditional yoga world, everybody has this kind of stuff memorized. At least some prayers or songs or something like that. That's really special to them.
My assistant, who is Nepali from here on the trip,
Mm-hmm.
he grew up in a Brahmin family.
Yeah.
So I'll be chanting some mantras and he'll just jump in and say them all himself. It's like
Right.
you could tell they were like woven into his thought process since childhood.
Yeah.
And even though he's maybe not living necessarily a super spiritual life, they're part of him and they're part of that culture. And it's like so beautifully, they flow out of his mouth on a regular basis just
So awesome.
because we're all chanting and we're all, we're having Hari Katha speaking about, we're having a morning Sangha, and then he'll jump in with some prayer that he's had to memorize, that he memorized from childhood. And
Wow.
it's nice. And if you start late, big deal. You start late. Start when you're 40, start when you're 50, but start.
And even if it's just like one prayer or something like that, that's okay. Like if it's hard for you to memorize this stuff, just one, right? And to hang on to, find something that's really special from Bhagavatam or something, memorize it, carry that with you, chant it daily. It's powerful. That's all it takes.
There's some verses that are sort of like Bhagavad Gita verses that have to do with the mind and have to do with almost like controlling the senses. But then there are just some sweet nectar verses that glorify Krishna. And so sometimes as a yoga teacher, you want to learn, wherever the mind wanders due to its unsteady and flickering nature, one should catch it and draw it back under the control of the self. For a yoga teacher, it's great to have some shlokas like that, but it's really nice to just whip out a very beautiful offering and a prayer, and they become fun to memorize. We had shloka day on our pilgrimage in Nepal, where everybody had to learn a shloka.
Oh, yeah?
And it was great, and everybody, it was exciting. So while they're hiking, they're practicing their shloka.
And at the end of the day, did everyone chant it for you, or like did you go
Everyone
around?
chanted their shlokas at night.
Wow.
We went around. Yeah. We
Sometimes-
had shloka day on one hike, and we had japa marathon on the next day.
Wow. Amazing. Now, did
People chanted, they made their first round, or they chanted 16 rounds. So one guy, the King of Hearts, chanted 70 rounds.
No, whoa, King of Hearts.
It was great.
Now, are you going to go visit that lake today? What's your plan? How could you go get so close and not actually go there and bathe in that lake? You got to bathe again.
Middle of a storm, man.
Come on. Why should that stop you? You're up there.
I'm not bathing with that crocodile probably still there.
Why not? It was that
Crocodile's
crocodile
there,
got
man.
killed.
Going.
Lord Vishnu, he actually with his Sudarshan chakra, he removed the head of that crocodile. So you're safe. No excuses.
I know, but the descendants of that crocodile are coming after all the devotees now.
Okay. Well, you can go there and at least put a few drops on your head.
Prabhu, we got a 10-hour drive down a mountain.
Raghu, you gotta go. You gotta
I'm
go.
not doing anything.
You gotta go and you gotta
chanting.
read that chapter. You're too close to. You may never go there again in your life. You're right there. You got to do it. King of Hearts, make him do it.
All right, King of Hearts is going to turn the screws.
All right. So Raghunath, as we're saying, it's important to memorize to memorize some shlokas, some verses, some song verses or something like that. But you know what else is important? Is memorizing some of these stories, some of these leelas, and particularly on a day like today, which is the birthday, the appearance day of Lord Ram. And I was hoping that now that we've got you back here, at least for today, could you please share a little of Ram's leelas, the leelas of Lord Ram, and the messages that we can learn from them?
You know, thank you for asking. You know, I was meditating on like, what is my favorite pastime of Ram? And I think the beauty about Lord Ram is his grace, his forgiveness, and this, you know, we call Ram Patita Pavana Sita Ram. He's the savior of the fallen. When we say fallen, we don't mean it's the savior of the dented cans. You know, we grew up in America or we grew up in the West. We've all done stupid things that we regret. It almost seems like I'm so unqualified to do any of these things, and I live in my ego all the time. Ram is there, and the beautiful story of that is when Ravana, who is the king of the demon yogis, and all of his brothers, they were so evil, and this entire court, and they were terrorizing everybody. He had one black sheep of the family, and his name was Vibhishana. Vibhishana always had a soft heart. He was always pious. He was a little rational. And Ravana dealt with him, but just didn't like him. He's always trying to give spiritual advice, and Ravana wasn't really into him. And so when Ram, after Hanuman had burnt Lanka, he went back to Setubanda in India, where Ram and all the army was, and they all crossed the ocean. They built that bridge, the bridge to Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
You know the bridge to Lanka is real. You know that, right?
I know.
It sounds crazy. A bunch of monkeys built a bridge. It's a real bridge. That thing is real. There are aerial photographs of an underwater bridge. I can't. If you know on the message board, write the name of the bridge. It's some British name. They call it something like King George, something bridge. Okay. There's aerial photos of that bridge, and you can see it underwater. Anyway, they went back there, and Ravana called a meeting with all of his ministers and his brothers, and they said, Ram has crossed with Hanuman and all these monkeys. What do we do now? And so all the ministers were just, worshiping. That's it. Adam's Bridge. Abir Ashrani just said that. Adam's Bridge. Google it.
By the way, Raghunath, you just got closer to your screen or something. You sound a little louder, which was good. So.
Oh, okay. I can get real loud.
Yeah. This is good.
How about that?
Okay.
So anyway, they're saying all the ministers are saying, "What are you scared of, Ravana? You're the king. You're so powerful. Even Indra is scared of you. All the demigods are scared of you. What do you care about some monkey? What do you care about some man? There's nothing compared to you." And so then Indrajit stood up, his son, who's like a crazy mystic demon. And he said, Father, this is nothing. This is no big deal. Rama's nothing. Are you kidding? Why are you even worried about this? We'll extinguish Ram like you step on a bug. And after everybody gave their speech glorifying Ravana, Vibhishana stood up and said, my dear brother, I've always cared about you. I've always loved you. But none of these people are actually speaking truth. They're just kissing up to you in an obsequious way. And they're like that word, obsequious way. They're trying to please you. I thought Mara would like that. They're trying to please you with kind words. But I'm here, brother, as a friend to tell you the truth. Beware of Lord Ram. Beware of Lord Ram. He's very powerful. And, here's the deal. If you give Sita back, which is rightfully his, it's his wife that you stole. If you give Sita back, he'll completely forgive you in a moment. And Indrajit, his son, stood up and said, Father, why are you listening to this uncle? Our uncle is always weak. He's a coward. He's not like us. We care for you. Your uncle is weak. Get rid of him, father. And Vibhishana stood up again and said, my brother, I am not weak and I'm not a coward. I'm your best friend. And Indrajit, you should sit down right now. Hear me, Ravana. I care about you. For the benefit of your entire kingdom, do what is right and give Mother Sita back to Ram. So there was complete quiet in the court. And it almost seemed like, hey, Ravana's going to have a change of heart. And when he broke the silence, he said to his brother, Vibhishan, if you are not my brother, I would kill you. As of now, I never want to see you again. Go wherever you like. And Vibhishan was sort of like, all right. And where did Vibhishan go? Now that he was cast away, went right to the army of Ram. Now you got to understand, a lot of listeners can relate to Vibhishan because a lot of you might even say, I got a crazy family. I got some crazy brothers. I got a crazy, right? I don't care how crazy your family was. No one had a 10-headed brother. That was a mystic yogi demon that the demigods feared. No matter how crazy your brother was, whether he was in and out of prison, you didn't come from that type of great criminal. And I know some of you out there, you got some crazy families.
None of them stole Sita from
Ram. No one had
Ram.
a crazy family none of them stole Sita from Ram. These guys were off the charts, atrocious.
Yeah.
And what happened when they started marching back to see Ram, when Vibhishana went to see Ram and actually give his life to Ram, all the monkeys started thinking, oh, here is this person from this horrible family. He wants to try to attack us. Let's kill him.
So this is interesting, right?
Sometimes
because
you get into your family.
He first of all,
but-
he tries to speak truth and do the right thing and give good advice, and he gets rejected for it and banished for it. And then he turns around and now he's going to go to Lord Ram's army and say, hey, I want to share some information with you. And again, he's distrusted, right? So sometimes you're trying to do the right thing and left and right, you're getting it. Right? Okay. Continue, please.
And especially for a lot of people, I think, a lot of us have had to be in that Vibhishana position where we're sort of sometimes have to step against the way we were brought up, step outside, unless you're like Mara's transcendental family who listens to the show every day. They're all just transcendentalists, I guess. But for a lot of us, it's our whole families are are you crazy? What are you doing with your life? This is insane. And you have to sometimes go against their families. Sometimes families are really aggressive about a person choosing spiritual life and not material life. But Vibhishana, even though he was walking that way, and some of the monkey soldiers of Ram were thinking, here is this. What does he think he's doing here? Let's kill him immediately. Ram and Hanuman could see, no. This person's different. So the great souls can see the heart of everyone. And when Vibhishana approached, he bowed down to Lord Ram. Now, a person materially inclined, if their enemy comes down to them and puts their head in a vulnerable position, you could get the head kicked, you could get the head stepped on, right? But trusting Ram, and Ram being who Ram is, Patitapavana, the savior of the fallen, he didn't step on Vibhishana, he lifted him. And this is another great point. When we give ourselves to a divine path, a spiritual path, a path of love, a path that doesn't make any material sense sometimes, we are embraced. We are not patterned. We are destroyed. When Ram lifts you up and embraces you, and Ram said, you give yourself to me, I give myself to you, Vibhishan. And Ram embraced him. What a win. What a win. And of course, Ram made him the king of Lanka at the end. So this is a great thing. No matter what your past is, no matter what your family is, no matter what crazy things we might have done in the past, or no matter who we hung out with or what crazy circles we've run with, Lord Ram is the most forgiving and will take us right back. And that is a big part of our spiritual practices, to deeply understand that we are forgiven. And then another big part of that is we must act like Lord Ram does, meaning we must also forgive. And that's a big one. We want Ram to forgive, but we don't want to forgive. I want to hold a grudge. So if we're holding grudges, if we're holding resentments, if we got some bitterness in my heart, if I see somebody on the street, oh, I hate that guy. We should understand, if we want to get embraced by Ram, we have to also act like Ram. And we have to also extend forgiveness and learn how to extend that love. So Ram is so gracious. This is the first story. When I talked to King of Hearts today, I said, I want to tell a story about Ram today. What should I tell? And he's like, Vibhishana. I was like, I was thinking the same thing.
Balaram, I was talking to before the show, he actually mentioned that pastime too. So something's going on.
It is sweet. It is sweet. I mean, the whole Ramayana is filled with sweet stories, but when you want to hear about how sweet Ram is, and forgiving Ram is, I especially relate to it because I feel like I'm Vibhishana a lot of times. Like, I've made a lot of dumb choices, and I'm trying desperately to give myself to Ram, but I've got so much baggage that I'm carrying in just from my association after lifetimes. What will Ram do with me at this point? How can I be of use to you, Ram? And Ram resurrects, and he takes whatever you got and keeps it. The good stuff he keeps, and he starts to shed away the bad stuff. And that's sort of like the story of sadhana bhakti and Bhakti-yogi. You got a favorite Ram story for me?
Well, I mean, there's so many there, but I don't know, maybe the one that's dearest to my heart, I don't know, there's so many, but and we may have told it before, but why not tell it again on this day? I think you know the one I'm talking about, Raghu. I see you leaning forward.
I don't know.
Okay.
Which one? Guha,
Jatayu.
Maharaj Guha, offering him a feast, and he says, nope, I don't eat cooked food. I'm a raw foodist. Ram was the original raw foodist.
Okay. That's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking of Jatayu. The story of Jatayu.
Ram was merciful.
You want to tell about Jatayu?
Jatayu is the, as far as birds go, there's some very beautiful birds out there. In the East Coast, you get these beautiful cardinals and bluebirds. Occasionally you see some pheasants where I live. Then you have these very noble looking birds, these birds of prey, these hawks that were always sort of sacred with Native Americans. But, a lot of the birds just eat plants. They're vegetarian. The hawks will eat fresh meat. The lowest caste, if there was a caste system for birds, would be the birds that eat already dead things. And those are the vultures. Mm. So there was a low breed bird who became a great devotee of the Lord. And his name was Jatayu. And as Sita was being kidnapped by Ravana, so if you don't know the story, Sita was kidnapped by Ravana. And Ram and Lakshmana are desperately looking for Ravana. And they're thinking, for Sita, they didn't know what happened to her. So they're expert at tracking. So they're finding broken branches and foot. They see some scarf on the ground of Sita. And they're thinking, what happened? Was she killed by an animal? Was she abducted? And sure enough, she was abducted by Ravana. And she was flying in the air because Ravana had a mystical vimana. Like sort of a flying saucer of sorts. And true. It's what saucer? A flying saucer.
You sure it was a saucer?
It wasn't quite a saucer. It was more like a flying chariot, if that makes it more digestible and believable.
Thank you.
Flying saucers, I don't believe in. Flying chariots, that's another story. With flying donkeys. So, when Sita was calling and demonstrating what we should be doing in great distress. Because generally when I'm in great distress, we want to eat our eat our pain, right? Eat our pain, stuff myself, stuffing emotions down my throat, right? Burying them. Sometimes when I smoke them or drink them, sex them, purchase things to get rid of my emotions. So these are all like medications that don't solve problems. So Sita demonstrates, which is fascinating because people say, oh, people get into spiritual life to medicate themselves so they don't have to think about the real issues of the world, and they're spiritually bypassing. Guess what? What do you think television is? What do you think overeating is? What do you think oversexing is? Drinking, smoking. It's all a way to bypass your genuine emotions. So Sita reached up her hands and in great despair called out, oh, my Lord Ram, oh, Lakshman, please come to my aid right now. Please help me. And she was screaming. So next time you want to reach for something to hide an emotion, you can just put up your hands and go, oh, Ram, oh, Ram. In that connection, you will feel some relief, believe it or not. We need places to take shelter. When we're sad, we should sit in front of our altar, prayers, or heartfully, please give me direction. So Sita was doing that. And sure enough, the vulture, Jatayu, heard Sita and said, Sita, what is the matter? Who has got you? And he flew, and he was a very old vulture. He flew high in the air and he realized, Sita, my lord's lady is being abducted by this demon king. And he said very boldly, hey, Ravana, if you think you are going to take Sita without me doing anything about it, you can forget it. I will die to fight for Sita. And Ravana laughed. He's like, you? Are you kidding? Do you know who I am? You're just like an old bird. But I tell you, it kicked in. Fire kicked from, Jatayu was possessed in protection of Sita and in service to Ram. And this is a great point of the story. We need something we can die for in our life. And Jatayu was like, take my life. I don't care. If I have to die for Ram, I'll die. I know I'm not going to beat Ram, but I'd rather die for Ram. And so he dove like a flying bird dive. A bird would dive like for a fish, dove right at Ravana and started pecking away at Ravana's eyeballs. But Ravana punching that bird, and then also he started pecking at him, and a fight ensued in the air until the chariot fell to the ground. The fight kept on going. The fight lasted an hour. And finally, the bird was weakened. But when Ravana just started getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and in that very weak, vulnerable moment, Ravana grabbed Jatayu by the neck, pulled his sword from his scabbard, and cut the wings off that transcendental vulture, and then sliced his legs off and left that bloody, feathery mess in a ball on the ground. And with his mystic powers, grabbed Sita. His chariot was a mess, and he flew away with Sita in the sky without a chariot.
Heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. And there is this miserable death. So what is the message here? We should just die? Is this the goal, just to die on a spiritual cause, be a martyr? And so as Ram is walking through the forest, Lakshman sees a bloody mound.
Who's Lakshman?
And Lakshman sees, he says, oh, my Lord. He says, my Lord Ram, there must be the animal that has eaten Lord Sita, or Lady Sita. He is covered in blood. I will kill him now. And he pulled his sword from his scabbard and went to stab Jatayu. And Ram said, no, 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 no. And Jatayu said, do not kill me. It is me, your great devotee, your fallen friend. It is Jatayu. I'm here to serve you. But Ram, I have failed you. I have failed you. And he started weeping. And then Ram came over to this big bloody bird. He said, oh, Jatayu, what has happened? He said, Sita was being taken away by Ravana. And I went to save her. And he has cut off my legs and my wings. And now I am on the doorstep of death. And Ram, I tried to serve you, but I have failed. I am a failure, my lord. And Ram embraced that bloody bird, and they swayed back and forth. And he said, Jatayu, you are so dear to me. If you serve me in any way, there is no winning and losing. You have served me and you have all my love. And from that, Jatayu left his body in Ram's embrace. It's the story of giving your life for something bigger than you, giving your life to the divine, and then just trusting that your life is in divine hands. You know, the King of Hearts told this great story to me. He said when he first came and did our 300-hour training, he wasn't really interested in bhakti. He was sort of came to learn cool yoga tricks. And then he met a young girl who was doing the training also, who was from Iran, who listens to the show, matter of fact. And in Iran, he was mentioning that, he heard like, what happens if you talk about Krishna in Iran? He says, well, some people, government found out and a car pulled up and they arrested like 12 of them. And we didn't hear from them for a few weeks. And then like 6 of them were released. And we still haven't heard of the other 6, and no one knows what happened to them. So it's one of those extreme police states, Islamic fundamentalists. And you're Krishna consciousness, right? I said, yeah. He goes, well, what are you going to do in Iran? She said, well, I'm going to tell everybody I know about the importance of their spiritual life and the importance of getting to know Krishna. And then at that point, he said, wow, I understand what dedication means. I understand what real putting your life on the line for something you believe in really means. And he was incredibly humbled. So all of those who know who that is, we offer our love. We can't say it on the air for obvious reasons, but thanks to those people. They set such beautiful examples. Like Jatayu. Put your wings up in the air, everybody. Woo!
Thank you for sharing that, Raghunath. And you know, our appreciation and our prayers for the person that you're speaking about. Yeah, you know, that story really shows, like you were saying sometime last week, I think it was, where you're saying like in bhakti, it actually is all good, right? Like in when your intention is right, and bhakti is really all about the state of heart or the state of our intention. But when the intention is right, there is no failure, you know, even failure is success. And Jatayu's, you know, life is a testament to that, that in one sense you look at it, he lost the battle. But for Ram, in one sense, it made no difference whether he won or lost. It was just the very fact that from his heart that he tried. And for Bhakti-yogi, that's our idea. We try to make our intention pure, and then we serve. As Raghunath was saying, you put your you put your life in the hands of the divine, and you trust. And then the results, ultimately, we leave that to God. You know, ultimately we try our best, but the results we leave in the hands of God. And just like Jatayu, whether we win or lose, you win. Right. Did we lose Raghu Mara? Is he back?
I think he's there.
I'm back.
Okay. You're left. You're right. You're like one of these mystics too. You're popping up over here, then you show up over there. It's like, you know.
It's all real, man. It's all real.
You've learned new things up there. I knew you were going to come back.
One Krishna miracle or another.
I knew you would come back with some kind of new potency, and I didn't know you were going to learn that kind of thing. So what's next on your list, Raghunath? We got just a few minutes left. What are you going to do now?
I'm driving back down the mountain. If we make it, then we're going to fly to Kathmandu for a couple days. if we make it. And we're staying at these hot springs right on the Gandaki River tonight.
Oh.
Humble ashram type of accommodations, but there's these hot springs. So if I can make it there in 4 hours, then we have 4 hours to Pokhara. These places are beautiful. You see all the Himalayas wherever you go, which are all holy mountains, including Everest. Here's a good trivia question. What is the name for Mount Everest? Everest is obviously a British name or, Western name.
Oh, I don't know. What is the name?
Ever heard that?
I probably have.
Matasagara.
Sagara means the ocean.
Trivia question.
That sounds like Mother Ocean.
Yeah, it's the mother of the ocean, Matasagara.
Mother of the ocean. Okay. Because I guess all the
mother of
rivers,
the ocean.
I guess the rivers start
So
there
that's what we're gonna do.
and then they feed into the ocean.
Yeah, that's what I speculate too.
Okay. All right. So what are you going to do? You're going to climb Mount Everest?
So
Is
then
that what you said?
No, we're not doing expeditions. I'm not going to Everest Base Camp.
Okay.
We're heading down the mountain. The pilgrimage ended a few days ago. This is just like a private, for me and my consciousness, pilgrimage. And I'm going to be back in New York on the 25th, and I'm going to Daytona Beach the following weekend.
Look at you. You're just like you are like a mystic. You're popping up here. You're showing up down there. One day you're up in Gandaki. The next day you're at Daytona Beach. Is it with 500 going on there? What's going on?
That would be great. Go to Daytona 500. No, I'm just going to teach for Alexis Martin's teacher training.
Oh, great.
She's like a great student friend, and it's got a great program in Daytona.
Okay. So then are you going to be with us tomorrow or what's going on? Probably not.
Tomorrow. Is tomorrow my day with you guys? No, tomorrow's a flight. It's the day after tomorrow. I'll be with you.
Okay. All right. So then
I'm going to miss you. I miss Wisdom of the Sages.
So then, So then tomorrow we'll continue with the creative Sangha interviews with Balaram, and I'll try to answer more questions, and then we'll get you back when we can get you back.
Day after tomorrow, I'm back. So,
okay. You'll have good.
What are our takeaways today, Kaustubha?
One takeaway from me was give your life in the hands of the divine and trust.
That's a good one. Find something worth dying for.
Act like Ram.
Okay.
Does Lady Di?
Act like Ram, right? Forgive like Ram, right?
Forgive.
Yeah.
Find sacred stones, perhaps.
Find sacred stones. When you're
bathing in cold water in the snow.
How about this? When you travel to the top of a mountain and you're really close to a holy place, you should go there. Right? And not neglect it. So, and then from Gajendra, right? We learned lessons like memorize some shlokas. They'll save you when you need them most. It's a good one, right?
Yeah.
And
and we get put through tests.
We get put through. Oh, you got to be in your element. You got to be so that you're gaining strength in your spiritual path rather than losing strength.
Yep.
Those are some good takeaways, I think. Okay. All right.
I think about bathing.
Well, hey,
bathing in the snow was my test today. Like, if you want something, you're gonna get tested for it.
All right. Don't become proud, though. Okay. These hot springs that you're going in, are they like sulfur, like really smelly things or something like that? Or are they like, I guess you'll find out.
I haven't been there yet.
Okay. Let us know.
We passed them on the way up.
All right, Raghu. I think that'll do it for today. But you're here with us. Why don't you lead the end of the show? Ready?
The song and dance.
Yeah, the song and dance.
All right, here we go, everybody. Thanks for joining us. There's a Bhakti recovery meeting at 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you've never tried that out, that's a great thing we got going. And recovery works hand in hand. If you've never heard of the 12 steps, we're all recovering from the material world. We are material world addicts, and we need recovery quick. So you can check that out. It's for members of our Patreon community. If you want to join Patreon, it helps us do this show. It's a community-supported podcast. Wisdom of the Sages. No, patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. At patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. That's it. And you can make a monthly contribution of your choice, and that helps keep this boat floating. And you get all these great online classes, like an online yoga school filled with a bunch of classes, workshops, other goodies, including a Discord thread, and of course, the Bhakti Recovery Group. Thanks to everybody who's always there, already there. Thanks for all the people dancing at the end of the show. Thanks to these guys. And look at all these shallogram Sheilas.
Whoa! What are you doing, Raghu? Oh my God!
Losing my material mind.